Oh, well, hey there, boys and girls. Um, so, this is the crafting mic. It's the microphone that's attached to the camera, like right next to my head, so it may be a little loud. Somebody just tell me if it's too loud. Brimstone is already screaming, and he doesn't realize that I cannot pick him up for his cameo. I literally can't pick this cat up right now. No, 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 don't scream at me. No. Um, he, of course, doesn't understand. Hello, Mr. Kai. Hello, Lady Straw. I know, poor Caddy. He only gets to lay with me and get petted for hours and hours on end, while I've been having to lay down more during recovery. Poor Caddy, poor elegant boy. To be told no occasionally, poor Mr. Brimstone. I know. He just whimpered. It was great. he got so many extra treats lately. He got pampered because I had to be gone for a day and a half, and so he got to have lots of extra food. I even got him a can of a nice quality soft food for him to have. My cat doesn't even like letting me get ready. Yeah. they learn, right? They learn. They do. They watch and they see, and they can tell when you're leaving. Damn us for leaving. Like how in the world could they possibly leave to go do things like make money so that rent is paid and cat food is purchased? How dare we? How dare we do this? Sipping. He's got an entire morning ritual that you have to follow. Okay. Oh, all right. You have to follow the ritual. He doesn't have to follow your ritual. You have to follow his. I know, Brimstone. I know. I can't lift you up, Kitty. I can't lift you up right now. You can't have the cameo. No. You can't. I can't lift more than 8 pounds with my right arm, and I'm sorry, but you qualify. Yeah. You're a large guy. I can't do it. I can't do it, Brim. So hello everyone that's come in. I'm here, you're here, and this is the internet, by the way. And the internet's a little bit like a spoiled cat, right? You go to spend some time with it, and you're like, oh, this is kind of nice, and then you try to step away, and then you get that feeling, you're like, maybe I better go spend some more time with it, and then it sends you noises and makes noises, and then you're like, okay, I guess I better go check this, and so that's what the internet's like, in case you were wondering. So I'm going to do my recent prefacing of things. I'm just a few days out from having had surgery. I can't promise how long I'll stream, but I wanted to do a little something because I didn't get to do my Saturday stream, and that sucked. I wanted to, but I wasn't there. My sleep is completely off the wall weird right now. I can spend like almost half a day like sleeping, and trying to recover more, and then I'm up, and then I can't sleep. But I'm on an antibiotic I have to take 4 times a day, and that makes it weird to sleep, right? I missed 2 doses because every 6 hours. Holy shit! Why, how? Um, so yeah, it's made sleeping interesting. But also the pain. Having a foreign object implanted in your body cavity, and trying to make it happy with it being implanted there is interesting. It's quite a method you have to follow. They must have done a good job. I'm not dead, so that's cool. And now I'm a cyborg. I'm a cyborg. That's cool. Who else can say that, right? Cyborg. Let me catch up a little bit. But he doesn't like me getting ready either. He has an entire morning. The internet is where most people's true colors show. Um, hmm. I agree to an extent, but it's also a place where people um, are not themselves. That people trying to make a career of it, people trying to make an income out of it. Some of them choose to be quite false, false happy, false this, and some would blame that on just sort of like a work ethic thing, and that's not totally off base either, is it? Because when it's your job to be a people pleaser and to tolerate people, you sometimes have to step outside of what you normally are to accomplish that. Um, so I don't look down on streamers or celebrities um, that can present a bit of falseness as part of being a people pleaser. Um, they're practically instructed that that is their job, um, and of course the ones that are struggling, they have to worry about not pleasing people enough, and that's why I could never be a celebrity. I don't think I could be I don't think I could be a big time streamer. I don't think I would make enough people happy. I tend to just say things how they are, and it does piss people off from time to time. And I try to be nice, right? I try to be kind, but at the end of the day, commissar mode comes out, and I end up just kind of saying it how I feel it needs to be said. Um, so it's a funny dichotomy, isn't it? It's an interesting thing that that some people choose to do, and for some of them, they do it in a way where it works out. Um, uh, I have seen streamers that tolerate far more than I would, um, and have a much higher grace with people than I do, um, and I think it's okay to be that way, so long as it doesn't make you feel false and make you feel unhappy with yourself. Happiness with self is, of course, one of the most important things that we can possibly hope to obtain in our lives. And whatever we're doing for income, money, because we want to, because we love it, whatever it is we're doing, you got to be happy with yourself and how you do it at the end of the day. And so people that are pulling that off, awesome, great. I've seen all spectrums. I think we all have. Anybody that spends much time on Twitch, social media, whatever, we see the people that are just being overtly fake, and that sticky sweet thing. That's where you're just like, you know. But you know what? I am also one that I don't like being judgy, and so if they like that and they're happy with that, then okay, all right. It's not for me. Let me catch up a little bit. There's a word for that, which it does show personality to an extent as well. Yeah. Elof says, yeah, you pissed me off. Jeez. Get in line, pal. Get in line. Get in line. I pissed off my fair amount of people. And I don't ever piss people off just to piss them off. I don't believe, that's not a good thing to do. But I will say that I am less afraid than most people to upset someone by saying what I think needs to be said. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and that's fine. I'll own that. And I've been plenty wrong in my life. But it's usually when I'm pushed. That's when I really piss people off. It's when I'm pushed. It goes back to that old saying that I sometimes recite that came out of World War II that says, demons run when the peaceful man is pushed to war. Don't push the nice guys too far. Don't do that. Don't do that. They have built up a huge tolerance, and when you get them past that, most people use anonymous accounts. Yeah, those that don't put their face and identity in social media as part of things, that's when you can really see more what you were talking about, Mr. Kai, where their true colors come out. People that feel they have anonymity and they can just say whatever, and what is this now?
Dice Goblin 1_ streams just followed.
Oh, some goblin. Thank you, Goblin1_ I can't remember what the name said, for following. Thank you. Goblin_1. I think it was. We are goblin receptive around here. We will cater to goblins. We will sometimes feed them. We don't judge. Dice Goblin streams. Yeah. Okay. I almost had it right. So yeah, and especially Dice Goblins. We cater to Dice Goblins as well, as long as they're not taking our dice. Yeah, I don't know if I could do the full green skin tone conversion and the loss of about 3 feet of height. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could go there. But who knows? If we reincarnate in the next life, what if I was a goblin? I mean, they've become much more socially acceptable since Dungeons and Dragons and Baldur's Gate, World of Warcraft, playable race now. So, all that being said, welcome, Dice Goblins. Damn, I almost slipped into my Christopher Walken again there for a second. So what the hell was I talking about? D&D one-shot group stream when? People keep asking me, and I just don't know. I really don't know. I have been wanting to venture into the venue of remote DMing for a while. My problem is that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go all in, which means that I'm going to have 3D tabletop map representation. I'm going to have full video interface. I'm going to have all the things. And I can't add all of that to my life right now. I can't. And You may say, well, Commissar, why don't you just keep it simple? I'm sorry. When I am a DM, it's full tilt or no. I create a world. I voice all my characters, all the NPCs. I I have all the players write a background story to their character, and I develop side quests along the way that are tied in with the lives of all of the characters so that the characters are never railroaded into doing anything in my campaign. In my campaigns, the party can literally be following along the storyline and suddenly say, you know what, fuck it, let's go over here and do this thing. Pardon my French, I slipped, sorry. Um, and they'll just say, we're going to go do this thing over here. And in my campaigns, I accommodate. And there's side things available to do all throughout. You know, let's say they get to a part of the story where they feel like, listen, this next step, I don't feel like we're good enough yet. We need to become better. And so, outside of character, what does that mean? That means, well, we need to level a little bit before we go and do that other thing. Um, and so I have to have something for them to do, and I always do. And it usually revolves around one or several of the characters' backstories. Or I also set up side events that can happen at any time. At one point, I even had a chart of random events that can occur when that off the railroad happens, and the players just want to deviate, or I want to cause them to deviate. So yeah, as a DM, I have to. It's a big commitment for me because I literally care about the quality of what I'm putting out, and not to take it too seriously. It's just when you have created as many precious good memories as I have from providing adventure for a group of friends at a table, you learn the importance of it. It is truly a bonding experience, and the good memories that are made are there for a lifetime and probably beyond if they relate those stories to their kids or whatever. Let me catch up on chat. I'm sorry. Don't worry, I'm a recluse. A dice goblin recluse. That, I mean, poisonous on top of everything else. Um, One shot, I want a full campaign with the legendary. And I'm sorry, when I'm ready to do it, I of course will invite you. Yeah. Um, so do I, but I know he'd never have the time. I I could make the time if I put other endeavors aside, put other endeavors away. Wintertime could cause that to happen. When I can't work outside because with all the medical stuff I've had going on, I don't think I'm going to reach my goal of making my garage a winter-friendly crafting working area. So winter might get limited, and that might be a good time for that to happen, because it'll be winter for a lot of us, and when that happens, then we're all indoors more and maybe a little bit more bored and a little more time. So we'll see, and I don't want to promise. I don't like to say I'm going to do something that and then not do it. I'm just not that way. Different sports at different times of year. Gunpla now. That's what we're doing today. We've got some gunpla going on, and if I'm not mistaken, Dice Goblin is actually interested in the dry brushing technique that I'm going to be using / demonstrating today, explaining today. This is the same dry brushing technique that I use on miniatures for tabletop, from D&D to Warhammer 40k and every other tabletop miniatures game I've ever played. And I've only been doing this technique for about 25-ish years. Gunpla. Thank you for asking. Gunpla is the art of building Gundam models, plastic models. In fact, let me flop the desktop over so that we can go to the crafting view. Bum, 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 bum. Where the hell is it? Where did it go? Bum, bum, bum. Boop. Okay. So, this is a Gundam model. And I finally launched into this. And I'm so glad I did. As a kid growing up watching Robotech, I've always had, of course, the geek love for giant fighting robots. And Gundam does it to such an excellent extent. These kits are inexpensive, surprisingly, which is good because I couldn't do it otherwise. But they are snap-together models that have the quality of glue-together models, and they're posable. The joints all work, and you can pose them in various ways. But just to be a Gunpla builder is not enough for me. I can never, ever, ever not add my uniqueness to something when I create it. I can't do it anymore. I have to add my own unique style to it. And so I made a plan, I enacted the plan, and I told everyone that I was going to start doing crafting streams, and so it happened. And I think this is my third one. The hobby of building, painting, etc., any models or kits or whatever based on Gundam. Yep. Going big lurk, gotta make the months. Yeah, I know what you're doing, Elif, I know. And yeah, just be careful. Drive careful and treat yourself well. Okay? I know what you're having to do the extra bit right now, and you're probably tired, and just be careful. Make that cheese, but don't get owned by the cheese. Now, when you do custom paint jobs on any model kit, most people just build the Gundam. And it looks great, right? It looks good. This is a great looking model. They come with the colors exactly as they are on the shows, on the anime shows. This is the Gundam Barbatos Lupus, or Barbatos, if you would like to say it that way. People say it different ways. And it's from the Iron-Blooded Orphans anime series for Gundam. And it's a beautiful kit. This is the one that I built off-stream, because I wanted to keep the one that I was building on-stream to just streaming. So I just couldn't stop myself, and I needed to build more. But it's a good thing that I did, because we're going to do a comparison here in a second. But these models are exceptional, and they somehow make them work and look exactly like they did in the series. Of course, without all the shooting and superpowers that go off, the Gundam magic, as I call it. But they look like they would work. I'm so impressed. In all my years of doing scale models, which happened starting 11 years old for me, I've never found a better model kit. I usually don't do snap together because I think they don't look good enough. These not only look better than most scale model kits I've ever built, but for them to be posable, not have any huge and obvious seams, and the plastic quality is amazing, and to be affordable, okay, I'm impressed, and so I'm in love, and this is going to happen for a while. There are other crafting things that I'm going to do along the way. You'll get to see some of my prop making. There's some other things that are going to be happening down the pipe. Now, whether you're watching this now or in the future in a VOD or on YouTube, Twitch VOD or on YouTube, you have already seen the construction of the Gundam Aerial from the Witch of Mars series. And another beautiful kit. But I said that I'm going to be doing custom paint jobs and putting my own spin on this. And as a result, there's things that have to happen, and that's where some Gundam purists will start to get maybe a little bit judgy of me, okay? Because most people that do custom paint jobs on these Gundam, what they do is they just primer it all over in some color, and then they repaint it to look exactly like this, but better. So they're still painting the Gundam completely in a custom paint job, but they're just taking this look right here, repainting it to make it look even more detailed, to make it look even better than it does. And this already looks good, right? This model already looks beautiful. I'm taking a step beyond that. I'm going to be repainting the Gundam in a way that is not going to, they're not going to look like they did in the anime series, but they are going to look cool. Just got to trust me on that. Okay, so this is what a Gundam model will look like built right out of the box. Okay. Now I'm going to show you what Gundam Aerial currently looks like as we get ready to paint it. So for a custom paint job on any miniature, any scale model, you really need to start by painting the entire thing an entirely base primer color. Okay. I almost always choose black. Okay. Why? Because the lines and the shadows naturally occurring in things, whether it be people or machines or vehicles, the core lines and shadows, they are dark. The underscoring of things, light, the casting of light always casts shadow. Okay, so that's a part of detail. So you start with a black base, or some people like to go with a gray or dark gray base, and that works better for them. Because the Gundam models have what's called paneling, which is where you, some people buy special paneling pens where they tap the pen into a line in the panels, and the ink will go down into that line and make that panel, that line, look much more obvious. Okay? The method that I'm going to show you today, you're actually able to accomplish paneling without having to use an ink pen. It's a naturally occurring part of the process. Let's get Mr. Barbados Lupus out of the way here. And for the most part, I'm going to be dry brushing the entire model intact. Some people like to take the model apart, or if it's a miniature, they like to take certain parts of the miniature off and paint like an arm or a leg, or separate this, separate that. I don't. I'm not going to ever say that my method is the best method. It's the best method for me. And if you like the tools that I'm pulling out of my toolbox to show you, then cool. That's great. I'm showing you my method and what I've done all these years. Okay. But getting back to dry brushing, all right, your base color, I really recommend that you go dark. Okay. I do sometimes do a dark gray, depending on what it is. With my Warhammer 40k prop guns and weapons and stuff that I make, I sometimes will go with a gray base because it's more fitting for what I'm looking for in an end result. For most miniatures and these Gundam models, I'm going to start with the black base. To go further on that, you say, "Calm, how do I make this black base?" Okay, well, there's several ways that you can do it. You can go the expensive way. You can get an airbrush and get a high quality airbrushable paint to go with it. I recommend Vallejo paints. You pay a little bit more for them, but the cost equals out because you have to do less coating of the model for it to work. With cheaper, lesser grade paints, you will often have to go several coats to make a full coat over the model or whatever you're painting. With Vallejo, I usually get a primer job with Vallejo paints in one pass. Okay. And so you can get a bottle of a very tall bottle. Let me grab one of the bottles here so you can see the size. Oh, ow! This is a larger bottle of Vallejo primer. Okay, and you can pour this directly into your airbrush and spray it on. But so what if you don't want to mess with airbrushes? Because airbrushes, they can be a very complex instrument. Okay, airbrushes can really piss you off. It's one of the reasons that I don't airbrush everything. A lot of people just airbrush every part of the process, and I don't do that. I tried it. I didn't like it. Manual airbrushes will cost you anywhere from $20 to $300 because you really should have a good air compressor that presses enough air to make the airbrush work properly, blah, blah, blah. I got so tired of it that I switched to a type of airbrush that does not use a hose and a compressor. This airbrush is also much easier to clean. It did cost me about $85 on sale. But these are nice in the fact that you can literally plug and play your nozzle in and out of the airbrush. You charge it with a USB-C. The motor in here is plenty strong enough to push the airbrush. This variety I got because I was so tired of them clogging and having problems that I just wanted to have an airbrush that I could pick up, throw the paint in, and not have a lot of horrible cleanup to do. And I was so tired of the clogging. The nozzles are easy to switch out. And there's many different makers of this type of airbrush. There's also airbrushes that use markers now, where you put the marker in the airbrush and it literally blows the paint from the tip of the marker onto the model. I haven't used them. But people are saying that they're pretty well developed now and they work pretty well. But here's the good news, folks. If you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on an airbrush, you don't have to. You can still buy this primer right here from Vallejo, and you can apply it by hand. There's YouTube Gunpla people that are painting and primering their Gunplas and their miniatures entirely by hand, and it's fine. It's fine to do that. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not. Perfecting your hand method of painting, even if it's primering the model, is a valuable skill. Trust me. When your airbrush breaks, you can still do what you like to do. You can get a nice primer job done on a miniature or a Gunpla, or whatever scale model, by hand using these primers. Yes, it's an airbrush primer, but the quality with Vallejo is so good. I brush this stuff on all the time. Okay, I use it for painting. You'll see me use it painting models today. I'll probably get to the point of, providing I'm still feeling okay, I'll get to the point of starting to hand paint the model the color that I'm going to have it made, or my idea anyway. You can use Vallejo paints that are for airbrush to paint directly on the model. It still works just fine, and I'm telling you, a lot of the time, it still does a good job on one coat alone. But anyway, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. So, you primer your model. What did I do to primer this one? I had an inexpensive can of paint that I had learned to trust that was good for all surfaces, meaning plastic, metal, wood, that dried in a matte color. And so I just went for it. And it's basically a spray can. I left it outside, so I can't show it to you. It's good to warm those cans up by leaving them in sunlight or dipping them in warm water for a little while. It makes the primer spray out better. But you can get an inexpensive spray can of primer. In fact, Vallejo makes spray cans of this primer. It's slightly altered because it has to spray out with particulates and stuff under compression in the can. But Vallejo does make spray cans of primer that work great. This was one that I found and tried, and it ended up being great. And I think on Amazon it was $5 a can. And one can would probably paint or primer, I don't know, probably something like over a dozen of these Gunplas. Easily. Okay. If you want my recommendation for the best kind of spray paint, the spray cans that you can get at mostly like automotive supply stores, I usually like to go with a primer that's different than this one. Okay. This one, you'll see that it has a little bit of a shiny sheen to it. I don't actually like that. I needed to use this can of paint and I trusted it, so I did use it on Gundam Aerial here. But my recommendation is get a high quality automotive sandable primer. Okay? Krylon makes some. And you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, Calm, you're talking about something that's meant to be sprayed on cars. Isn't that going to trash my model? No, it's not. A lot of people don't realize that a good portion of cars these days are plastic. So these are paints that are meant to be sprayed onto the surface of a car, metal or plastic, and be sandable when it's dried. So they can sand it to an even finer finish as needed. Or some people use sanding to detect impurities in the surface, things like that. But long ago, I learned that you could get an inexpensive can of automotive sandable primer in matte black or matte gray and spray it on your plastic minis, your metal minis. And if you're ever worried about it, if you're, oh my God, did I get the right kind? Just take an unimportant part of the plastic kit or miniature that you're working on. Take something from like the sprue or an extra bit that you're not going to add to the miniature and spray it with the paint that you're worried about. Let it dry. Did it wrinkle the plastic? Did it bubble up? Did it look weird? Okay, if it did, then yeah, you can't use that kind. But with hard plastics like miniatures and Gunpla models, most automotive sandable primers are just fine. What's the drawback to buying an inexpensive primer like that from an auto parts store or your hardware store? You can't spray inside with it unless you have a massive ventilation system. And you should wear a mask or a respirator to keep the fumes away from yourself. Definitely don't use a spray can type primer inside. Use it outside in open air and wear at least an N95 mask. You should be using more of a respirator type thing, okay? If you're comfortable with keeping it away from yourself and spraying it outside where it's fully ventilated and you don't want to wear a mask, that's on you. So that's several different ways that you can primer your miniature or your model. It doesn't have to cost a fortune. Let's say, well, I want to do let's say you want to use the airbrush method, but you got to save up money to get an airbrush, okay? And you got to learn how to use it, and you got to test, and you got to try and figure it out, and blah, 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 and learn it. And there's lots of YouTube videos out there that will do it, and that's the primary way that most people primer their Gunpla or their miniatures these days. But let's say you got to save up for it, or it's just going to take you some time. Don't be afraid to go ahead and buy a high-quality airbrush primer and just brush it on the model with the paintbrushes that you have. It will work. Or, in the meantime, you could also do like I was saying, go get a spray can primer and use the spray can to do your primering until you can afford the airbrush. Okay, I do highly recommend this type of airbrush. that doesn't have the compressor and the hose and all that other mess that I used to deal with all the time. The technology in these type of airbrushes is solid. This one is about 2 years old now. It has never failed me, ever. Whenever something went wrong, it was my fault. Anyway, so this one was primered with an inexpensive matte black primer paint, okay, that was good for all surfaces. For me, it's not totally optimal because of that shininess. If you use the automotive sandable primers, it has a very adhesive surface. You won't see a lot of shine, okay? And the paint sticks to that much better. Now, normally, I would start dry brushing the entire model, but Gundam Aerial has this amazing shield and this giant-ass rifle. And that makes it difficult to do all the dry brushing of all the surfaces. So, the good thing about Gundam models, everything comes apart even after you have the model together. To demonstrate the dry brushing technique, we're going to do just Gundam Aerial's shield. In the series, The Witch from Mars, you get to see this shield do really cool things. This shield in the show is actually it busts apart into about 8 or 9 drones. The shield is made of drones that operate off of the Gundam. It comes apart and it becomes extra shielding for the Gundam, but also several of the parts can fly around independently and attack the enemy. Really cool. But for the purpose of the scene that I'm going to put all of my Gundams in, I wanted Gundam Aerial to have the shield all together and using it tactically as a shield, okay? And I just think it looks badass as a shield. It looks like part shield and part weapon, okay? But this is a perfect piece for us to start, for me to show the dry brushing method, okay? So, let's get started with that. Hopefully on the screen, you can see down here to my right is a piece of something that you don't care about that you can use to splatter your colors on and put paint on. And then also you're going to need some kind of a towel or some paper towels to wipe even more off. And I'll get to that. But you need something to put the paint on that you can also wipe paint on the side. But you also need like a towel, okay, which you should always have while you're doing painting with paints anyway. Now, the purpose of doing dry brushing in this method is to bring out a ton of detail. You can look at this shield and you can say, well, I can see a fair amount of detail there. This is really cool detail for a model. This is their high-grade model. And you can see all the lines and you can see all the textures. But it's not super obvious, is it? Because it's all one color. And so when everything's all black like that, it's not always easy to see all the details. And this is where the beauty of dry brushing comes into play. Today I'm going to use a little bit lighter colored gray to dry brush on the model than I normally would, because I want people watching to be able to see very clearly what dry brushing does. And so, Brimstone, no. And so this is going to get dry brushed onto the surface of this model. You don't have to use Vallejo paint for this. I just recommend that you use a good quality paint. Now, what the hell's dry brushing? Dry brush. Oh, Miss Bamboo. Hi. Hello. This is the bit that you wanted to catch. Miss Bamboo is also a Gunpla builder and video gamer and all-around great gal. Welcome in, Miss Bamboo. I hope you didn't miss too much of the other stuff. You could always go back and watch the VOD later. I'm going to have it on Twitch and YouTube both. We already went through the whole primering process and what kind of primers to use and things like that. Now, the dry brushing technique, whatever your base color is, the dry brushing paint has to be significantly lighter, okay? And when I say significantly, I'm not saying like complete opposite. Some people like to go, like when I was doing mass painting of Warhammer 40k miniatures, I would do a black base, and then I would do like a medium to almost a dark gray dry brushing over the top of that base. It depended on what colors were projected for the end color. The lighter color dry brushing paint you put over the black, the easier it is to paint brighter colors. Okay, this is called Sky Gray from Vallejo, and I've used it quite a bit in some of my props that I've made, and it's pretty light. But like I said, I wanted people to be able to see. So I'm going to put a fair amount over here on my paint board that I don't care about. And this is the part that's going to cause question marks in people's heads. Okay, so you're going to want a brush that's fairly large. Like for this Gunpla, I chose a brush that's about 3/4 width and fairly thin. Okay, now here's what we're going to do. You're going to put a bunch of paint on the brush. Okay, so about halfway down maybe. And then on the dry part of your paint tray where you've got your paint, start wiping the paint off. You're thinking to yourself, Calm, what? You just put a bunch of paint on and now you're wiping it off, but you're going to go even further than that. You're going to wipe some of it off on your paper towel. Okay? You want almost no paint left on this brush. I may actually need to wipe more off, but watch this process. Dry brushing, we're going to just whisk the paintbrush across the surface. Okay? Just a gentle back and forth process. Okay. You're starting to see detail reveal itself. Detail that you couldn't even see when it was all black. And this is why it's called dry brushing. Look at this part right here. It's a perfect example. Okay? And you'll get faster at it. I'm going a little slow because I'm trying to demonstrate. But it literally brings out all of the edges and all of the contours on the shield. And you want to try to go sort of the opposite of the grain, so to speak. Okay? Now watch the side of this piece. Okay? And you can keep going, and you can keep going until you've got enough on the flat parts. Okay? So what you've done is you've put paint on the brush. You've wiped about half of it off on your paint tray. And then you wipe even more off on your towel until there's maybe 25% of that paint left on there. Not wet, mostly dry, right? In a way. It's not really super dry, but you know what I mean. We're taking a wet brush and we're drying it out and then using it to basically create the surfaces and expose the details. Okay? So, if you look at this, you see all that detail, all those lines brought to the forefront. This is what it looked like before. This is primer black before dry brushing. And this is after. Okay? Now let's do it again. Now I recommend you don't go any more. You don't go any more than, say, 4 or 5 passes of dry brushing on a piece. before you put the paintbrush in water and try to get the paint off of it, because you're already taking a bunch of the paint off, right? And it's already coming down to a drier state. You can accidentally ruin a paintbrush by dry brushing for too long and too much paint dries into the brush. I use strictly water base for reasons like that. I want as much time as possible. Okay, let's do the other side. The other side is the inside, and people aren't going to see it as much because it's the inside arm part where, you know, she's holding the shield towards the bad guys, right? Now on this one, I left a little bit more paint on the brush so you can see that you can brighten things up and still keep all that detail. Look at all the dark lines that are retained. Okay? All of your dark lines and your paneling becomes very evident. And if you do your dry brushing perfected enough, you may not even need to do panel lining at all. Let's get a little bit more on there. Wipe a whole bunch of it off. Let's get some more brightening of down here. Okay, and you'll learn where you can dab things, get inside flat parts. You'll perfect the method as you go. Some people just like to do a whisking back and forth over and over and over until they get the desired effect. I've learned over time that I can start dabbing at certain parts. Okay. Let's brighten this top bit up. Didn't get quite enough up there. Okay. And so we've gone from having a completely primer black shield with no detail to something with extreme detail. Okay? Now we're not leaving it like this because of course we have other colors that we want to paint. But part of the beauty of dry brushing is when you're doing dry brushing, it brings out and makes very obvious what you're going to want to paint and what you're not. And it divides all the lines into different places that weren't obvious when it was just primer black. Okay? This is the beginning of the detail of the model. Now let me catch up with chat. Okay. Been lurking for a bit. That's cool. Hey, Keenan. Hi. Hello. This stands out so much. Feels like my miniatures after dry brushing. If I put colors on later, the dry brushing is completely gone. Wowie woesies. This is so tough. I'm lurking, having dinner, but we'll watch the VOD if I miss anything. You're talking about, this stands out so much. Feels like my miniatures after dry brushing. If I put colors on later, the dry brushing is completely gone. I wanted to reread that and make sure I got that. Here's the fun part of it. When you're putting a flat, water-based dry brushing coat over the entire model, when you go to paint it, not only will you see the exact places of where you want to paint what color, but because you've already lightened it up, that colored paint is going to look even better because it has this lighter coat underneath to bring out the color. So the only thing that you have to avoid doing, dry brushing is still paint. You need to give it its time to dry. Sometimes I've gotten so fast at dry brushing an entire model that I went back and I started painting before the dry brushing paint was truly dry and able to be painted over the top of, and it created a little bit of a mess at times. You still have to have the patience. Dry brush a part, set it down, dry brush something else, and if you're still done, like say within an hour with everything, give it a little bit more time. For the sake of the stream today, I might paint a little bit earlier than I would normally, but I want to show the effect and why dry brushing really sets up and brings out the paint job on the model or the miniature. Okay, so we've dry brushed the shield quite a bit, and when we go to paint it, actually let me do a little bit more. I'm going to get a smaller brush. I want to do a little bit more on one part of this. Again, we put paint on the brush, we wipe quite a lot of it off, and then wipe off even more on our towel. There were some parts down here that I felt like didn't get enough dry brushing. I want more. And this is a smaller brush, and so you have to do things a little bit differently. I don't want to whisk back and forth too much. I just want to make sure I hit some of these spots that I feel like didn't get enough. A smaller brush, still flat, it's still a flat brush, but a smaller brush can get into some of the places that the bigger dry brushing brush can't get to. And that can be helpful. Okay. Let's get a little bit more on these long flat bits. Okay, that's better. That's giving me a little bit more of what I wanted. Okay. Good. Good, good. Need a little bit right here. Need a little right here. Miss Erica, hi. Miss Erica, I'm so sorry. I apparently missed a stream. I was zonked out for a really good portion of yesterday. I think I missed a stream. I'm so sorry. When I saw Twitch says recover your streak, I was like, wait, what? I don't miss this person's streams. I was very upset at myself, but I'm being forgiving of myself because of I'm what, 4 days out of surgery now. So yeah, my sleep has been so damned stupid. All right, so let's keep going. Let's keep going. We're going to remove this hand, and again, this is not something I normally do. I usually like to paint the whole model as one piece. Other people do it differently, and they will take the Gundam apart and dry brush it. I don't like doing that. To me, that's like saying I'm going to paint a bouquet of flowers, and then you cut up your your canvas or whatever you're going to paint on, and just do one flower on this part and one. I mean, and that's fine. People do a great job, and people have their way of doing things. That's fine. That's for them, not for me. All right. So in dry brushing, your paint does get dry pretty quickly, and you do have to throw some more on your paint panel or whatever you're using. I like to use something completely disposable. I would spend a fortune probably if I had to buy a bunch of paint trays and stuff. I'm going to go to about this size of a brush because I'm about to do the head and the face of the Gundam. And this is going to be very revealing as far as the detail goes. You'll see what I mean. If you look at Gundam Aerial's head right now, it's hard to make out the detail and all the different little parts that make up that head. Okay? But just like with the shield, we're going to bring out all the detail. Let me catch up on chat before I start painting. So typically, how fast can you finish these doing them the way you usually do it? This is my first series of Gundams. I usually do things... about this size. This is a late war Tiger 1. that's in the process. I work on these in the winter time. It's part of a diorama I'm making. But this was dry brushed, and then, well, first it was primered in the actual color that they primered German tanks in. And then it was dry brushed for details, and then it was sprayed with Dunkelgelb, which is German for dark yellow, and then I airbrushed on the camouflage. Those are larger and much more detailed. So those take a long time. Those are high detail models. This Gundam, I'm going to estimate to do, and again, I'm going farther with my paint job than most people do, okay? Because they already look great. And no matter what you do with your models or your miniatures, you're doing awesome because you're creating. You're creating and you're doing something unique. So if you don't go as far as I go, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. That doesn't mean that you suck or whatever. That's not it, you know? Most people don't even do custom paint jobs on Gundams. So like, just create, just paint, and if you fuck up, great. If you mess up, sorry, F word. If you mess up, great, because that's one of the biggest quantifiable measures of the human race, and the way that they improve is by screwing up. You probably should. You learn. But I would say, for me, and the level of detail that I'm going to go on this Gundam, I'll take a guess at 10 to 15 hours, or for me, because I have to take breaks a lot from bad stamina and health shit stuff. Sorry, I'm swearing. I told myself I was going to swear less this stream because we might have young ones here. This will probably take me several days to do the complete paint job on it, if I work at it every day for my usual work time of 2 to 3 hours. I'm just guessing. I'm just taking a stab. I really am. No, I am not left-handed. You're looking at things in the reverse probably because of my camera. I'm right-handed. This is my right hand, the brush. Though I am supposed to be using my right arm less because of the implanted device on my right collarbone in the surgical implant I'm recovering from. You're afraid of Anakin Skywalker for good reason. For good reason. Okay, so now let's do a dry brushing of the head. So let's tilt the head back a little bit, if it'll let us. The paint may have made it a little stiff. There we go. So let's get a good look at Gundam Aerial's head just prior to the dry brushing. And here we go. Again, this is about a 1/2 inch wide flat brush. We're going to put paint on. We're going to wipe most of it off. And then we're going to wipe even more off on our towel. Okay? Because going less is not as dangerous as going too wet, because then you get too much paint on and you might have to reprimer or put black over the top of it. Here we go. Let's get some on the face right here. Already we're seeing the lines pop up. Let me get a little closer to the camera. Here we go. All the detail of all the parts is coming out. So here's a good example. Let me finish doing this half of the head. And again, we're just lightly whisking it across the surface. And you may need to turn the paintbrush over from time to time as you start using up the paint on the brush. Okay, and you can start dabbing. You'll learn where you can dab to get round surfaces covered. You can see a line on the back of the helmet that you wouldn't have even seen if it was still primer black. Okay, we're putting a lighter colored paint across the entire model, but not destroying the detail. We're bringing out the detail. It's the opposite. We can see all the lines of detail coming out. Okay, so now I did this half of the helmet and the face. Okay, hopefully you can see that okay. All right, we turn it over and that's what it looked like prior. Okay, again, that's just primer black, all one color. The dry brushing has brought out and exposed all of the dozens and dozens of tiny pieces that make up Gundam Aerial's head. And this makes it very easy when we go to start applying our colors. We can say, okay, this cheek part, I want to be this color. The jaw part, I want to be another color. The helmet, we're going to do the same color as this other bit. And you can see where the eyes are still sunk in. Okay, you can easily paint those eyes because it's very clearly defined now. The dry brushing has made it so that all the parts are very evident. Whereas just primer black, if you tried to paint that, you may not even see some of those details. Okay, dry brushing is a good way to post primer perfect your paint job. You're setting the model up for greater painting success by doing a total model dry brushing. Okay, let's keep going. Let's finish this head part. Oh, my back is already starting to flip. All right, we're going to wipe most of the paint off, and then we're going to wipe even more off. And then we're going to start our process just like we did on the other part of the head. And if you start dry brushing and you notice that it's just kind of getting more paint on there than you really wanted, there's nothing wrong with just go back to your towel, dab a little bit more off, try again. Make sure you're putting as much on there as you want to go on there. Okay? And you can still do, if you're not happy with the amount of detail in the panel lines that's left, you can still do panel lining. You can still get an ink wash or a panel line marker, and you can dot it into those lines and make them completely black if you're not satisfied with how much was left after the dry brushing. And people will often worry when I've taught dry brushing in the past. They're like, well, I'm so worried that I'm going to screw the model up because I paid X amount of money for the model, and you know, I'm worried that because I'm new, I'm going to screw this up. Guess what? Let's say I screwed up the entire dry brushing bit. Okay? Let's say I just messed it up. I'm not happy with it. I don't like the color that I used for the dry brushing. Whatever. You can take that primer and reprimer the entire model. You're not going to lose that much detail, and you get to learn. Okay? This is all supposed to be for fun. This is supposed to be something you're enjoying. So enjoy it. And enjoying something means not being afraid. Unless you like going to haunted houses and getting scared crapless. Okay? Now here's a good example. Hopefully the camera is showing this. I got the dry brush, this is the perfect size dry brush to get it down into the joints. There's a bit of neck armor right there. Do you see that line right in the middle? Let me see if I can get something better to point it out with. There's a line right there in that armor piece. The dry brushing brought color and detail to the entire piece, but did not get in that panel line. Okay? This is what I was talking about with, you can do a dry brushing job that leaves all of the panel lining evident. Excuse me, I'm coughing. We're losing most of the paint off of our brush. But you can see a bunch of the panel lines already still in the model, especially in the shield. Pardon me. Blah. It must have been a brimstone hair. That's the joys of having a cat. So let's take a look at our head now that we've dry brushed the whole head. You can clearly see all the things that you're going to want to paint. I'm sorry about my throat, my God. But we've got some inner details. Let's go and do the other side of the neck. Let's get down into the joints. Let's expose all the gearing in the joints and everything. Okay, we've wiped most of the paint off. We're going to wipe even more off on our dry towel. And when you're using a towel, it's okay to use like a quality paper towel, but you don't want to use like a cheap towel or tissue, because as it gets wet, it'll start to come apart, and then you'll get particulates from that tissue on your model. You don't want that. I recommend using an old rag, something that doesn't shed any fibers. Okay, so down here in the neck, here we go. I'm going to get into that joint, expose all that gearing in there. Again, if you leave it primer black, you're not even going to see it. You're setting yourself up for success with your paint job. Let's tilt this head back a little bit if it lets us. There we go. Posable heads. Let's get in there. And you can see all that detail in the neck, and all the mechanics in that neck are becoming evident. Now that's something that you don't even notice as much even when you just build it out of the box. Okay, let's do a little bit of whisking, a little back and forth on some of these flat pieces. All right, so we've got the neck and head all dry brushed. Let's get a little more on the inside of these antennae. In the series Mobile Suit Gundam Witch from Mars, they would have tournaments with each other fighting in the Gundams and the mobile suits. And the winner was the one that cut off, the first one to cut off an antenna on the other Gundam opponent's head. That was their tournament, and they won by doing that. Okay, so there we go. It's a little bit of whisking across the face, a little bit of whisking across the brow. Up here. Okay, we can see all those different panels, components, all the pieces, the multi-piece elements of this head. Okay, let's keep going. Let's do some of the chest now. Now I almost want to switch to a wider brush for the chest, but let's keep going with our 1/2" brush. I've been doing this long enough, we can pull it off. Okay, we got the paintbrush wet, wiped a lot of it off on our paint pad, and wiping off even more on the dry towel. Here we go. So let's work against the grains. We're going to whisk. It's a bigger piece, so we can whisk. Let's go ahead and hit these flat panels in here. Brush is just the right size for it. There we go. You can see the full shape of that chevron right there. By dry brushing it, you can see all the edges. You can see every detail. It really starts to make you think, you know, about, as you're doing this, it can help you decide. Well, let's see. I want to make, I think with the way that looks, the way that turned out, I think I want to paint that this color or that color. Okay, so we've got the top of the chest. Let's get a little bit of this in here. So a little bit down in that sternum. And I forgot to turn the music up. I wanted you guys to be able to hear me over the music. Can you hear the music at all? Because as I stop talking and do more painting, I want you guys to have some music to listen to. Putting paint on, wiping most of it off, and then wiping more off on the towel. You can start to see all the ridges that you wouldn't have normally even noticed. Now, somebody usually asks the question, can you actually use dry brushing to paint the entire model? And the answer to that is yes, you can. It just depends on the model and what color it's supposed to be or what color you want it to be. Oops, that's a case of a little bit too much. I left a little bit too much on the brush, but let's use that to hit the flat pieces. Let's go ahead and use it. Let's just not go down into any of the cracks. And as we start to use up the paint, it'll just get back to being just fine again. And we can use some of it to lighten up places that we've already been. We can use the last of this paint to get a start on the hips. And there we go. Look at all those individual pieces you didn't even notice when it was primer black. And that helps to bring them out, bring them to light for the eye, and then you can start painting them whatever color it is that you're going to paint them. To expound a little bit more on that question, can you use dry brushing to paint an entire model or most of the model? And my answer was, it depends on the model and what your intentions are. Okay. While I'm talking about this, you're seeing me clean my brush. You don't want to let them sit too long. The other ones I was using, I already put in the water. I have a container of water over here that you can't see, it's off camera. But you can use your dry towel to get the paint off. And after about 20 minutes, they're dry enough that you can start using them to dry brush again. You don't ever want to use too wet of a brush to dry brush with. It'll just make everything get sloppy. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a model that I mostly painted using dry brushing. I'll be right back. For any of you that are also Star Trek fans, there was a series called Star Trek Enterprise, and it was supposed to have another season, but it got canceled. They had already designed what the ship was going to evolve into, but it never got used because they canceled the show. This is the NX01 refit this is what the Enterprise was going to look like if another season had happened. Okay? Do you see all the lines? Okay? My intention was, and the ship, when the series went on, was going to be white. Okay? And I did the bad guy version. This is the Mirror Universe Terran version of the ship. So what I did is I did a black primer paint job, and then I took white and dry brushed the entire model white. Look at all the detail. I didn't do any panel lining on this model. This is all dry brushing technique. Okay? All of those lines were brought out purely by dry brushing technique. There's no ink wash here. There's no panel lining. Every black line you see was a result of the dry brushing technique. And I went a little bit crazy with this. This was my first Star Trek model that I touched after not having done any for a long time. And I put lights in it. It's got lights. The switch is very hard to hit because it's tiny. But I actually put microelectronics into the model. So the nacelles light up. This impulse light comes on. Sensor lights. And it doesn't have to be plugged into a power base. There's a battery and microelectronics inside of it. But yeah, that's the NX-01 refit. That's what the Enterprise would have looked like in the next season that didn't happen. And like I said, I did the bad guy version. This is the Mirror Universe bad guy version of everything. That shit. But again, no panel lining done. All these lines were just revealed by a total model dry brushing. That switch is so small. I had to try to hide the switch. But yeah. So that's an example of total model dry brushing. I'll do a couple more flips of it. That's a white dry brush over a black primer base. So most Gundams, if you're going to keep the Gundam the same color as they are in the show, then you could do a white dry brush of the entire model. And it may take you a couple of passes. Like that ship that I just showed you, that took a couple of passes, where you put on the first round of dry brushing, and then you let it dry a little bit, and you go and you do another pass. And eventually, all of your flat and pronounced surfaces are all the color that you're dry brushing, while all the sunk in areas and the details and the panels and the panel lines, those are all still tucked away. Okay. The better quality primer you use, the better the dry brushing technique works over the top of it. In the case of our Gundam, it's already starting to show all this amazing detail that the model has. Okay. I have been talking for about an hour and a half. My back is starting to really bother me. I'm going to take a break and get some water and stuff, and I'll be back in about 5 to 10. So enjoy the music. I'm going to put you on the break screen. Unfortunately, guys, I'm going to have to get going. I'm starting a retinal migraine. I'm getting the light aura on one side. This is a kind of a nasty kind of headache that I get, and I'm just going to have to go lay down and take some stuff until it passes. Um, these happen randomly, unfortunately, uh, probably because I was making my back pissed off and everything, and still pretty tired, but yeah, these can develop into a hell of a headache, and I just have to take something and go lay down. I'm sorry to have to cut it short, but pretty soon there'll be a whole blurry aura on one side. It's a retinal migraine thing that happens, and after that goes away, I'll start a really bad headache. I've had these since I was like 11 or 12 years old, and when they happen, I just don't have much choice but to lay down in a dark room and take some stuff and let it pass. But anyway, thanks for coming to the stream today, and I'm sorry to have to cut it short. I hope you learned some cool things about dry brushing, and I should have another crafting stream again next week. And yeah, thanks for being here, and I got to get going, unfortunately. So yeah, I'll talk to you soon.